Hello and welcome. I am Beranabus from RNGesus, and this is my guide on how to heal a heroic using only Tranquility. As you can see, I am wearing 8 pieces of the Cenarian tier set. What this set does is it reduces the cooldown of Tranquility by 50% when you have all 8 pieces. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the Cenarian set, it drops out of Molten Core, which is a vanilla WoW instance. It drops off of most of the bosses, and 2 of the pieces, the belt and the boots, are both random trash drops. Another important factor of this is the improved Tranquility talent in the Resto tree. This is a 2-point talent, and with both points it reduces the cooldown of Tranquility by 50% and reduces the threat generated by 100%. So as you can see, my shaman friend and I, Mooj, we were a bit unlucky and we got Halls of Reflection Heroic as our daily random. Well, I had already loaded my video, so we decided to stick with it. You see, the way this works is that the cooldown reduction on the Cenarian 8-piece and the cooldown reduction from the improved Tranquility talent are additive and not multiplicative, which means that the 50% add to each other and are 100%, which means that Tranquility has absolutely no cooldown. Now, Tranquility is a great raid healing spell. It's not as effective in 25 mans as it is in 10 mans, and most Resto Druids don't talent for it, but I've always been fond of it, so I put 2 points into there. It's really effective in 10 mans because it basically lets you heal half the raid for their full health easily. So, as you saw, our tank left when he saw the loading screen, which is, natural for a lot of tanks in the looking for group system. They don't like Halls of Reflection at all. And we got a pally tank, and we look like we're ready to go. I start by inspecting the tanks in most of my heroics because as long as the tanks aren't in, well, I guess you could say gear that is, made for heroics, which is, eye level 188 blues and starter epics. But as long as the tank isn't that undergeared, so to say, you can easily pull off healing with Tranquility. Here I'm talking to my party mates. Normally I can get a nice conversation going about my set. People like to think that I'm a hacker or that I'm glitching the game, and they're always wondering why the Tranquility has no cooldown. Most people really don't know about the Cenarian set or the improved Tranquility talent because it's not a very orthodox thing. A lot of people didn't play during vanilla, so they don't know about the cooldown reduction, so they're actually quite surprised when they see it. So, just to point out, our tank did very well in this because our tank was very good about stuns. The only dangerous time on these waves in Halls of Reflection is the first initial pulls of each wave where you have multiple mobs all hitting the tank at the same time. Our tank was very good about Holy Wrathing and Hammer of Justicing some of the harder hitting mobs such as the Enraged Footmen and the Mercenaries, which allowed for Tranquility to really shine. I asked the Shaman Mooj to drop a cleansing totem because I don't really have many free GCDs while spamming Tranquility because it needs to channel. But since she can't cleanse curses, I made sure that I would cleanse the curse arrows. But when you're cleansing, you need to make sure that you do it right after a Tranquility tick. The most dangerous time on these pulls are going to be when you, as the healer, are either Frost Tombed or knocked back and your Tranquility does not tick. I personally am an engineer for my raiding professions, so I have the haste enchant on my gloves for times to where the party is getting really low and I need some quick Tranquility because haste does stack with Tranquility, and the more haste you have, the faster it will tick so that you can get a lot of healing off really quick. Tranquility is a really nice tool for healing in Halls of Reflection because it heals the entire party for about 6 to 8k depending on your gear. I'm mostly 10-man heroic geared. I used, aside from the 8-piece Cenarian set, I use all of my regular healing gear, which includes the heroic staff off of Sour Fang, heroic Holiday's Grace off of Rot Face, the DPS caster DPS rep ring, and the Circle of the Dark Mender from TOTC 25. If you plan on running this spec and gear, you really don't need to worry too much about mana regen. I would actually advise enchanting more towards spell power and haste, because each tick of Tranquility has a chance of proccing clear casting. So more than likely you'll always be proccing clear casting off of your Tranquility channel, as long as it maintains a full channel. As you can see, we are going along these waves quite easily. Our DPS are doing a great job. DPS in the group is a bit low. We had a Frost Mage who was a bit undergeared, but Mouge and our Rogue make up for that greatly. Our tank is doing a great job of picking up stuff. And now we pull Falric. Falric is a nasty boss because of his stacking damage and healing debuff that he does as the fight goes on, and his fear that does damage over time. Now, since I claim to be healing this only with Tranquility, normally as a Resto Druid I could put Hots up right before the fear, and that would be just fine. Nobody would really take damage. However, I'm healing this only with Tranquility, so I can only heal after the fear is done. The one downside to this gear is that it leaves me with about 16k life, which is pretty low considering. So the fear almost kills me most of the time, and I have to make sure that I keep myself and the Frost Mage especially, because he was lesser geared, up at full health before the fear, or else we're gonna die. You see I popped Bark Skin right there just to make sure that I don't die. The Frost Mage kinda got in a bind here because he decided to stand away from where Tranquility was being channeled, so I had to make sure I ran over there and get him some heals while he was stunned. Another thing that could possibly hurt you here is the stun that Falric will put out. If he stuns you and then fears while you're still in stun and you don't have a chance to get Tranquility out to the party, then you need to make sure you pop your haste gloves if you have them, or a potion of some kind, and get some healing out really quick. Tranquility is really nice towards the end of the fight, because Tranquility does heal the entire party for a good bit. As you can see, it's still ticking for about 1500, even with the 75% reduction. And you see that our mage DC'd, so we are actually down a DPS, which made the fight last a little bit longer. And Mouge didn't pop Bloodlust because she's a baddie. And our Pally Tank got his tanking weapon. Congratulations to him. He was pretty excited about that. And now we are going to skip ahead to the second boss. The second boss drops Void Zones on the ground, which, no matter how powerful Tranquility's healing is, cannot be healed through. It does leave a curse on the person that stood in them, so you need to make sure that you decurse in between ticks so that people don't take too much damage. This fight is pretty much straightforward. There's not a lot of damage going out if people are moving out of the Void Zones correctly, and he's pretty easy to burn down quickly. And now I'm going to demonstrate the effectiveness of the cooldown reduction aspect of the improved Tranquility talent. A lot of tanks have trouble on this particular pool of Halls of Reflection because the images jump down so late into the fight, and some tanks, especially DKs, might not have the runes available to pick them up. And as you can see, I did not pull any healing aggro, even though I'm putting out a hefty amount of healing on the party every second. And again, our DPS is a little bit slow, but that's okay because people are still learning. Tranquility is very effective for the explosions that the images do, because when they die, they explode and deal damage to the party. But Tranquility heals fairly often. It ticks, at my haste level, it ticks about once every 1.5 seconds. So it's healing for quite a bit, quite often. I've chosen to be in my Dark Iron Dwarf form for this, just to illustrate the power of Tranquility, because there is quite a bit of raid damage going out at certain levels in this in the gauntlet, because the A-bombs are spewing on people and the Shadowcasters are casting at the ranged because the tank doesn't pick them up necessarily. One thing to remember is that the Shadowcasters cast Curse of Doom, which does not tick immediately and will tick after 12 seconds, so that you have time to get through an entire Tranquility class before having to dispel. And there you have it. I have successfully healed Halls of Reflection Heroic using only Tranquility. To this date, I have healed all Heroics successfully using only Tranquility.